Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What's going on, everyone? We need to talk some Eagles football because I think this is so weird. It's so odd. I don't even know how to comprehend it. I have so many different theories that could possibly be the case, but you're not used to seeing this with the Eagles, at least from the outside. It seems as if this is an organization that's on the same page. Doug Pederson, Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, they all communicate as one. They put their heads together, they have a discussion, and they come up with an answer to a problem or to a question based off of coming together and being one team. This seems like it's potentially one guy laying down the law, and that's Jeffrey Lurie, because it doesn't make sense for Doug Pederson to come out and state at the end of the year presser that Carson Walch, the wide receivers coach, and Mike Groh, the offensive coordinator, will be here next season, and the next day they are both fired. It just doesn't click. It doesn't make any sense. It's so hard to comprehend. So where does this put this team right now? It's very just crazy. It's very crazy to me, and we will talk about this. But before we do, we need to hear a word from my sponsor, SeatGeek. Are you looking for free money when buying tickets? Well, it's a no-brainer to use the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page because you will get $20 off of your total purchase. You can put that towards parking, beer, food. It's a no-brainer. Use the promo code BROADS today. Now, to be fair, this is a positive thing, right? It's a positive thing that these two are fired. You can totally upgrade Mike Groh. You can totally upgrade Carson Walch. Now, at the end of the day, ultimately, Doug Pederson is the one that creates the offense. You can totally have someone better than Mike Groh to help with input. We all know the storyline about Frank Reich being the mastermind of the Super Bowl, and I don't think that is legit or fair to an insane degree. I think he had value and totally helped Doug Pederson, but listen, this is Doug Pederson's offense at the end of the day. There are guys that can come in and help and do a better job than Mike Groh, but Doug Pederson is Doug Pederson, and he will be the one to have the most input and have the most fingerprints on the way that this offense will work or not work at the end of the day. We just don't know. This can be upgraded, though. This position can be upgraded, and a couple guys that I saw Tim McManus throw out there is Jim Caldwell and Kevin O'Connell. Now, I know Deuce Staley is a name that everyone wants to hear. I just don't see it right now. I don't think that that is where the Eagles are going to go, which is inside the organization right now. It seems as if they want to get a fresh set of eyes and a new look on this. And I believe Deuce Staley deserves to be upgraded at some point. And I was actually listening to something Jeff Mosher of 97.3 ESPN and Inside the Birds podcast mentioned. Don't be shocked if Deuce Staley ends up leaving because he realizes that maybe the opportunity is just not here in Philadelphia, and that's no knock on the way the organization is handling this. I think Deuce Staley can be upgraded at some point. It might not just be here just based off the fact that they want to get a new fresh of eyes or they want to get a new look, or listen, maybe it's even, and this is something that they mentioned, maybe it's just the fact that he's a running back coach, right? And will he have enough impact on, say, the passing game and creating an offense as a whole compared to just saying how great he is at the running backs and how knowledgeable he is with the running back core? Is it not going to be as effective when it comes to creating an offense as a whole? I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just looking at maybe the possibilities on why he isn't getting that upgrade. I'm not going to cry if Deuce doesn't get the job, but I think he deserves to move up in the ranks. Who knows? I'm not too focused on right now who they are going to get at this very second. I'm still trying to process how this press conference and firing even went down. So here's the three options that I think is possible. One, he just flat out lied. Doug Pederson went up there and flat out lied. Now, why would that happen? Did he just get caught up in the moment and just get scared? And because he backtracked. I even mentioned this when I broke down the press conference. It was as if he backtracked and said, well, we're still assessing the situation, because he said Mike Groh and Carson Walch would be back. Then he was asked about Jim Schwartz, and that's when he said, well, of course Jim Schwartz will be back. He's got to get his stuff. He needs to come back to get his stuff if he gets the head coaching job. And it was just a weird answer, and he backtracked. He backtracked with Carson Walch and Mike Groh once Jim Schwartz's name was brought up. The whole thing was funky. So did he just lie and then say, oh my God, did I just lie? I need to find a way to get myself out of this. Because let's be real, Doug Pederson isn't the smartest human being in the world. I know he's a good rah-rah guy and he's a good coach when it comes to keeping everyone on the same page, but is he this brilliant, intelligent man? I can't go to that degree. I'm sorry. You might think that, but I see something different. I don't think he's this genius. I think he's a great coach when it comes to keeping everyone on the same page, but in terms of smart and intelligent, maybe he's not all there. So that's my first thought. Number 2, maybe Jeffrey Lurie assumed that Doug Pederson would make the right decision, because there have been reports out there, and Jeff McLean is one of them, that say that Jeffrey Lurie did not want to bring back either of them. He didn't want to bring back either of those two since December. Like it was a known thing since December. Donezo. Done. We don't want you back. So Did Jeffrey Lurie assume that Doug Pederson would make that decision on his own, knowing that they struggled on offense, knowing the wide receivers were poor like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and some of the other guys, Matt Collins? Did the owner expect Doug Pederson to make the right decision? And when Jeffrey Lurie heard the words, he jumped out of his seat, freaked out, and said, we got to fix this. We can't have people think these two will stay here. We can't have the fans or the beat reporters writing that these two guys are going to come back in this organization, because they are not. So what did he do? He came out with a statement instantly the next day, shut it down. No, you are fired. Boom, let's move on. Or third, Jeffrey Lurie didn't meet with Doug Pederson before the press conference to tell him that they will be fired. Now, this is why I'm so confused, because when the press conference happens, you know what questions are coming. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, the coordinators, Carson Wentz. You know certain questions are going to be asked. You knew that Mike Groh and Carson Walch would be brought up in this conversation. So how did Jeffrey Lurie and Doug Pederson not sit down and have that conversation prior? And why do they not all connect and say, okay, this is the game plan. This is the answers. This is what we're going to go with. How would the owner think the meeting after the press conference would be the smartest idea? And once again, Jeff McLean reported that they did not meet until after the press conference. But how? I mean, how does that even happen? That's so hard to even comprehend, because that's stupid. And we're talking about smart business people. When you own an NFL team, I mean, I know you have a lot of money, so maybe it's not all about being smart, but it is. I mean, if you have that much money, you're a smart businessman, right? How do you not process meeting before such a big press conference where you are telling the fan base and all the media and the whole entire city what is going on with this team moving forward, with what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, the biggest team in the city? How is that not discussed prior to standing at a podium and answering questions? Once again, is it a bad thing that this is happening? No, because I think it needed to happen. The team needed an upgrade in these spots. But how did this happen? Are we witnessing Doug Pederson losing a little bit of his power? Because someone like Doug Pederson, a Super Bowl winning coach, they normally have the power. I want this guy to be my coordinator. I want this guy to be my defensive coordinator. I want these coaches. Well, now that the owner is stepping in to make these big-time decisions, is that the organization telling Doug Pederson, listen, you're good, but you went 9-7 in back-to-back seasons, and we want more than that. We want to be winning 11 games a year. We want to be winning the NFC East at 11 wins, 12 wins, not 9 wins. We got lucky this season. Is this Jeffrey Lurie telling Doug Pederson, we like you here, we know you have tremendous value, but hey, you're not the best at evaluating coaches? Because Jim Schwartz was thrown his way. Mike Groh was moved up in the ranks once Frank Reich took that head coaching job in Indianapolis. So maybe as a front office, they're realizing maybe Doug Pederson doesn't really have the smarts to pick a good coordinator. There's a narrative out there that maybe he's doing this. Doug Pederson saying that they'll be back just to help them, because Doug Pederson is a player's coach. He's a coach's coach. My point is, he wants these people to succeed. He wants them to go and be bigger and have a better role elsewhere. So if he vouched for them and said, yeah, they'll be back, it looks good on them. As if, well, Doug Pederson didn't really have a problem. Or is he trying to help his own brand? Because you look at Andy Reid, and his coaching tree is great. You look at Bill Belichick, his coaching tree isn't as great, which is funny because everyone wants to be like the New England Patriots. But maybe it's to help Doug Pederson's own personal stock. Look, I breed coaches. Listen, I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing so many different things out there because it's not something that's normal. You don't really see this too much within the Eagles because it seems with the way that this Eagles front office is structured, everyone's on the same page, they have the proper conversations, and they come up with a decision as one. And this is why it's weird, because you didn't have that in this spot. The owner comes down and says, we are firing these two, after the coach makes a dumb statement and says that they're coming back. It's more of a weird situation than it is a panic. I'm not panicked that this happened. I'm not freaking out that this organization is losing everyone and they can't stay together. And no, it's not to that level. It's odd, though. It's flat out odd, and you can't deny it. I'm curious to see if Jim Schwartz stays. I think he will, but I think when you hear Howie Roseman talk about getting younger, and now you see these moves, it's as if they're doing a big-time culture change, a new identity. And that's not the wrong thing to do. You saw Seattle do it once their defense got moved. They went a different direction. They helped out Russell Wilson in a different way. Pete Carroll stayed there, obviously. But they changed their identity. They moved on from some players. They got a new look. They keep their quarterback. You're not going to move Russell Wilson, but I'm letting you know what the Seahawks did, and maybe the Eagles are going the same way. You have Carson Wentz, you find new pieces. They won the Super Bowl. They move on from some of those wide receivers. They keep some of them, Zach Ertz, and you throw Dallas Goedert in there now, right? So it's a different team with some structure involved with the roster, but you're getting younger. You're moving on from some players. You're gaining some youth in the draft. You're finding new coordinators to help out, maybe get a new offense and to get a new scheme and to give teams different looks. Because here's the thing. Coaches watch a ton of film, breaking news. And if you realize what one team is doing year after year after year, you need to shake some things up. You need to get a new offense. You need to move the ball differently. You got to give teams different formations. And getting a fresh set of eyes on the offense can help Doug do that. And now teams aren't watching the same film. I'm sure they will. I'm not saying everything Doug Pederson does gets thrown away in the trash and they start fresh. So yes, watching film is still beneficial, but it's a totally different view on the offense that can change little things that can throw off coaches in matchups on Sundays. I'm not against this, and it's funny, I didn't even realize it once he said that they're coming back. I didn't even realize it as a big-time issue because, as I stated, this is Doug Pederson's offense. And at the end of the season, it was working. It was working with practice squad players. So I know at times I was so anti-Groh, get Groh out of here. But the more I processed what was going on, it was on Doug Pederson's offense because he's the guy, and it was on these players not performing, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar. It was on those players because when you saw hungrier players out there, it worked. It was more beneficial. Now, Doug Pederson does a tremendous job when his hands are tied behind his back and he's very limited with players. When he has more weapons, when he has these studs that have fast speed and can do more and are way more versatile, that's when he maybe tries to do too much with the offense, and it seems as if the simpler, the better. Only time will tell. If you had to tell me, or if you had to have me bet on it, I would say, yeah, maybe he tries to complicate a lot of things. But this is the NFL, and sure, it is more complicated than your basic offense in college. So, who knows? My point is this. I'm okay with moving on from Mike Groh. I think it's totally acceptable to get a new, fresh set of eyes on this thing, and who knows who they're going to hire. There are some good candidates out there. The Jim Caldwell one is very interesting. He's been a head coach in this league. He's had success in this league. He's been a part of a Super Bowl with the Colts, so he has a ton of NFL experience. I really like that. But I'm sure the Eagles are going to come up with something solid. It comes down to, is Jim Schwartz going to stay? Are they going to be different on both sides of the ball. Wade Phillips keeps getting thrown into the mix, but he's a 3-4 guy. When you look at this personnel, we don't even have linebackers. How are we going to run a 3-4 if we don't even have linebackers on this team? There's so many things that need to be addressed this offseason. It's going to be very fun to break down and talk about because the whole secondary is going to have to be new. What are we going to do at linebacker? How are we going to structure this defensive line? I can't wait to see what Malik Jackson has in store next season because that was such a big-time acquisition. We barely got to see him play. But what about the offensive line? Jason Peters, Jason Kelsey, is he going to retire? Wide receivers, we need some new ones. So there's so much that's going to play a factor into next season. This is going to be a fun offseason. I hope so, at least. Let's hope it's not like the Phillies where they make one move on Zach Wheeler, and now we're all pissed off because all the other teams are getting better, and the Phillies are just sitting there. Let's hope that Howie Roseman comes up with a great game plan, drafts very well. He's got a ton of picks. He mentioned that in the presser, so he's got a ton of picks. He's going to be able to draft a lot of players, and guess what? In case you didn't know, the Eagles need a lot of players, right? Hey, breaking news again. The Eagles need to get a lot of different players at a lot of different positions. Safety, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with Malcolm Jenkins. And are we going to draft a safety, have him work underneath Malcolm Jenkins, and then move on from Malcolm in the future? I got to calm down because the moral of the story here is the Eagles pulled a wacky move on us, and I couldn't believe it. I was working today at 97.3 ESPN, and I was sitting there producing the Mays and Aton show, Harry Mays and Aton Chandler, and I'm talking to Mike Gill about this, and he's the 2 to 6 host on 97.3 ESPN, and the program director. I'm like, are you seeing this Schefter tweet right now? He's like, what's it say? And his eyes lit up when I told him, are you serious? We're both stunned. We were like laughing. It was almost so funny. How is this possible? How is this going down right now? We just heard our head coach stand in front of everybody, look at them in the eyes, and say, yes, they will be coming back. And I don't know if he was being funny, trying to make it seem like, yeah, they'll be back. They got to get their stuff, kind of like what he pulled with the whole Jim Schwartz thing. But the way it came out, he delivered it strong and said they will be back. And speaking of Doug Pederson, if you haven't seen this already, I'm sure you have because it's blowing up all over Twitter. But this man, when Howie Roseman was talking at the podium, was sitting in the back, totally blanked out, stared out, and he's sucking on a water bottle. He's just playing around with the water bottle like it's on his lips, and as if, hold on, I got a water bottle right here. I don't know what he was doing. He was like rubbing it on his lips as if it was chapstick. If you're listening to it on the podcast version, you can't see what I just did, but you can imagine it. I had this water bottle, and what's he doing? Come on, Doug. This is what I mean by, I don't know if he has all the brains, or I don't know if he has all the intelligence. You are a professional NFL head coach. You're in the middle of your presser. Your GM is talking on the podium, and you're blanked, stared right next to him, playing with the water bottle on your lips. I mean, I love Doug Pederson. I think he's a very strong head coach. I think he understands what he's doing when it comes to keeping this team together. But man, oh man, do I think he has a little bit of a problem with all of his brain cells. I think he has lost some, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's from playing in the league. We know that there's a ton of brain stuff going on. Now he's a backup quarterback, but unreal. I mean, I love the guy. I really do. But sometimes I question him. And I'm not talking about football stuff. There are times where I question his football stuff. But I'm just questioning his intelligence as a whole. And I think that's fair. I really do. Had to take a sip there anyway. So, where do the Eagles go from here? Well, they need to hire an offensive coordinator. They need to address what they're going to do with Jim Schwartz if he does not get the job with the Browns. And a lot of people are saying he's not going to get the Browns job. They're going to go with an offensive coordinator. That's what you do with Baker Mayfield and with the type of offense they have with Odell Beckham and Landry. They're going to be able to get a young guy in there and go with the trend. Well, I'll say this. We are talking about the Cleveland Browns, right? Wouldn't it be a very Cleveland Brown move to hire a defensive coordinator like Jim Schwartz, who failed as a head coach in Detroit at one time? Wouldn't it be so Cleveland Browns to go out of the box and hire someone so different and so random that normally no one would ever do? And I'm not saying Jim Schwartz doesn't deserve an opportunity, maybe. I think he's got a He's football smart. I'll say that. He's definitely football smart. I don't know if his personality is very head coach. It's old school. I feel like he's more hard, like totally the opposite of what Doug Pederson is. Not to an extreme. He's somewhere in between a Doug Pederson and like a brutal, strict Bill Belichick, I guess I'd say. Somewhere in between that. I don't know if that personality is what works best as head coach. But I'm not saying automatically that there's no way in hell the Cleveland Browns hire him, because I do think it's possible, because it is the Cleveland Browns we're talking about, and who the hell knows what they do. They're so crazy. They're so nuts. They're firing another GM. They're hiring another head coach. Why not? I mean, why wouldn't they? Why would you put it past them to hire someone like Jim Schwartz? I'm not saying it's a definite. I'm just saying I don't think it's as ridiculous as some people think, because we're talking about an organization that doesn't have much structure. I want to know your thoughts down below on this. It's unique. There's no denying it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.